guys? Welcome back to Bench Talk. It is currently 4 in the morning, and I'm going to record this right before I go to work. I'm sipping coffee, and I can't remember the name of it, but basically the coffee that I'm drinking is you separate out egg yolks from the egg whites, and you do 2 per ounce of espresso, plus a tablespoon of sugar per egg yolk. So normally it has 2 ounces of espresso, 2 egg yolks, and 2 spoonfuls of sugar. I use brown sugar. I can't remember the name of it. This combination is an Italian thing. And normally you mix those ingredients together and you basically whisk the crap out of the egg yolks with the sugar, and you can kind of get them frothy. And then you add the espresso and you drink it. I've changed the recipe a little bit because I have an actual commercial espresso maker. So to make it easier for me on frothing the egg yolks, I actually add my egg yolk mixture to a cup of milk. And then I actually steam the milk on the espresso machine, and it actually, nothing negative happens. It doesn't like coagulate or anything like that. So I do that. Technically the sugar gets added in with the 2 shots of espresso, and I pour the espresso mixture into a cup. After I steam my milk with the egg yolks, I put that into the coffee, and dude, surprisingly, it's actually amazing. It's probably one of the best coffees I've ever had. And on a consistent basis, I have this basically every morning. So, welcome back for Wildcat Wednesday. And today, and I posted a thing about this the other day, but the Wildcat we'll cover is one that's kind of near and dear to my heart. And it's the 223 Ackley. And it is literally what it sounds like. It's a 223 that has been Ackley'd. The performance of the cartridge is really what I find interesting. So right, the 223 Ackley compared to the 223 Remington or a 5.56 case has basically no body taper, right, from the head of the case up to the body shoulder junction. And the neck shoulder junction stays the same. And the shoulder at the body shoulder junction, right, I guess if you're looking at like the case standing up from the case head, right, like you sit around on a table, right, you go from the neck shoulder junction, and when you're looking at that shoulder angle, it's like a 30-degree, basically the shoulder joint at the shoulder body junction is going to get pushed forward, and it's going to become a 40-degree shoulder. Which, you know, man, a lot of people talk about different benefits for 40-degree shoulder. The fact that, you know, your brass doesn't stretch as much. It does change the interior geometry of the case for the way that powder burns, which from my experience with like the 243 Ackley, which I shoot a lot, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with the cartridge. But the benefit that's cool, right, is you gain potentially, you know, 10% case capacity, which is additional powder capacity that you can use for additional propellant. And now the configuration that I normally shoot 223 Ackleys in is long barrels, fast barrel twist, and I'm trying to shoot heavy for caliber 223 bullets. So and this has been basically the same for the majority of the barrels that I've had, but my very first 223 Ackley was a 1 1/8 twist. It was a 26-inch barrel. It was a Schillen Alternate pre-fit from Schillen, and I had it set up with a 1 1/8 twist. It was 26 inches, heavy contour, threaded 5/8 by 24, and that barrel was probably the most interesting barrel that I've had for 223 Ackleys. It was the very first one. So the brass that I played around with was LC brass. I also played around with some basically 5.56 cases, like just and I don't know what the brand is, or I guess I do know the brand. It would be Winchester. Just a bunch of the military cases from basically, ball 5.56 ammo. or like range pickup brass. So I, shot LC, shot range pickup brass that I had processed, and then I've messed around with brand new Starline 223 Remington brass and brand new Starline 556 brass. I wish that Lapua, I wish their brass was still cheap, or cheaper. It used to be like $50 for a box of 100 cases. If it was still that price, I probably would just run Lapua 223 Remington brass for the 223 AI. But, man, it's expensive. It's like $1 a piece. And I'm trying to use my 223 Ackley for a training rifle for long-range shooting. And the purpose of that is to not have wildly expensive components and hopefully have something that has a lot of barrel life. So it's not super advantageous to the equation if you're trying to pay $1 per piece of brass. So the brass that I settled on with my current setup is I am shooting a mixture, and I haven't really seen a difference, but I'm shooting a mixture of the Starline 223 and Starline 556 brass. I did testing with both of them, loaded them up with the exact same charge, loaded them up with the same primer, same bullet, same seating depth, everything. And I, did a 10-shot. I've done many 10-shot groups, and you cannot get them to group differently, at least in my rifle. They shoot almost identical. Or I would say they shoot identical. I really don't see a difference. You can grab 5 rounds of the 223 Remington load and 5 rounds of the 556 load, and you can do a 10-shot group, and at 100 yards, I'll hold under an inch shooting those 10 shots. So, and that's just with a Fireform load, but I haven't seen a difference. So that's what I'm using right now for actual brass. But the unfortunate part, I was doing testing with my original barrel, and I actually, and granted, right, for viewers, every barrel that you get can be completely different, right? Bore diameter can vary, up to half thou. There can just be differences. And so you'll hear people say, oh, I have a fast barrel or I have a slow barrel. And that can be very true. And some barrels, like you can grab, I can grab one, 26-inch 223 Ackley barrel and compare it to another one from the exact same manufacturer. It was cut by the exact same smith, with the exact same reamer or tooling that they use. And they could shoot completely different, and they could shoot wildly different velocities, sometimes up to 100 plus feet per second. So this first barrel I got from Schillen, which was one of their select match barrels, shot amazing. And I did initial load workup with some Starline brass, and I was able to push the 80 grain with actual, after I did my Fireform, so I have Fireformed Starline brass, I was able to push 80 grain ELDMs at like 3,100 feet a second to 3,150 with really no pressure signs. And it was kind of just whichever powder charge I wanted to pick to actually get it to settle at either 31 or 3,150. And I had them all the way up at 3,200 to check pressure. And everything was fine. I wasn't getting ejector swipes, wasn't getting hard bolt lift, nothing, which was great. Another thing I'll do to check and see how much my brass is expanded is you can grab a fired case and just try to rechamber it. And normally if you're running like really high pressures, you're probably not going to be able to fit that case back in your chamber. If you're running lower pressures, at least from my experience, normally you can chamber those cases and maybe you feel some resistance on the bolt. But it's not going to go in like a no-go gauge, right? You're going to be able to cam over. It's not going to be super hard. And so everything looked great. I was really happy with that barrel, and it shot awesome as well, which was great, right? We want accuracy along with, the best ballistics we can get with whatever load we're shooting. And I ended up messing up, and so basically the way Ackleys normally work is that they have basically a 4,000ths crush fit. If you chamber a virgin piece of brass, so like for the 223 Ackley, if you chamber an empty either 556 or 223 Remington case in the chamber, you'll actually feel resistance, and it's basically a crush fit. So there's a 4,000ths difference between that fresh piece of brass and the chamber. And the whole thing is that you're basically pushing that piece of brass into the neck-shoulder junction of the chamber. It basically is stabilizing that piece of brass while you fire it so it can make the 40-degree shoulder. It's honestly a fantastic design, because if you didn't have that crush fit at the shoulder-neck junction, what you would have to do is you would have to create a false shoulder. And creating a false shoulder is going to be like me taking a 223 Remington case, necking it up to either 243 or 257, and then going back and resizing it back down to 22 caliber, and basically I would create a false shoulder. There would end up being a small amount of the neck that didn't actually get sized all the way down, back down to 223 or 22 caliber. And so you would create a false shoulder. That's what people do with like the BR cartridges when they're fire forming the dasher. It's a huge pain in the butt, and you don't want to have to do that. So that's why the Ackley cartridges are so cool, so innovative. In my opinion, P.O. Ackley was very ahead of his time, and it's a cool idea, especially if you're going to have, in my instance, I was going to have a training rifle regardless. I can go with a 223 Remington, and I can, literally shoot the exact same load that I'm shooting for my Fireform load, which my current Fireform load is just a 50 grain, and I can't remember what the bullet is. It's either a Game King or Varmint King, something from Sierra. It's just a 22 caliber, and it actually does have a boat tail. So it's a boat tail hollow point, 50 grain, 22 caliber bullet. I got them as blems from I think Midway USA, and it's that bullet in a fresh piece of Starline brass. I'm shooting not for Fireform loads or for normal loads. I'm shooting CCI 450s, but for my Fireform loads, I have a bunch of the CCI 41s, which are just the NATO version or military version of the CCI 450s. So I'm shooting the 50 grain hollow point boat tail Sierra bullet, brand new Starline brass. I'll run a bunch of different powder charges. Like I'm going to try Reloader 17 soon, because I have a keg of it that I need to get rid of. I just found that Sierra has a load worked up for 223 Ackley. I put it on my Instagram. Sierra actually has 223 Ackley load data from, I believe it was the Sierra 5th generation manual. I'll put a link for that data in the description of the podcast. You guys can click on the link and go check out Sierra's data. I'm tickled pink that Sierra has data for the 223 Ackley. I think that's so cool. Anyways, so 50 grain soft point or hollow point boat tail, fresh Starline brass, CCI 41, and I'll use CFE 223. I'm going to try Reloader 17, but I only have these things going at about 3,000 feet a second out of a 26-inch 1-8 twist barrel. I'm just using it to fire form. And then the hope is that I have a brand new 1-7 twist barrel that I do not have on a rifle yet. And the hope is that I'll take fire-formed brass and I'll work up a load with 88 grain ELDMs, hopefully at about 2,900 feet a second. And it's going to be a super cool long-range plinking practice gun, varmint gun. It should be pretty fun. And so anyways, that barrel that I had that was my first barrel, basically what I ended up doing, and this is the whole point with talking about the crush fit for the Ackley cases, if you go to chamber a case in what you know is an Ackley chamber, and you don't feel resistance, I would highly recommend you not shooting that ammunition. So at the time, I had picked up a bunch of range pickup brass, right, that was the from the Winchester ball, like 5.56 ammo. So I had to swage the primer pockets and all kinds of crap, which sucked. I picked up that brass, and when I originally processed it, I had sized it with a 223 Remington sizing die. And I had bumped the shoulder back too far. So I had sized the crap out of the case, and I oversized it, and I didn't realize it. And so me shooting them in a normal 223 Remington chamber, no issues. I shoot this ammunition in one of my buddy's guns. it shoots probably an inch at 100 yards, and it was just, I did like 1,500 rounds at one time. I just did a bunch of ammunition so I could have a bunch of 223 on hand. And it's just loaded. This ammunition that I loaded was loaded with 60 grain Sierra tipped Match King bullets. So they're the 22 caliber 60 grain TMKs. And they perform great on hogs and coyotes and all kinds of stuff. We've used them for all kinds of shit. They do really good. And I only have them going like 3,000 feet a second out of a 24-inch 223. And so I was like, oh, I have all this brass that's already processed. I have all this ammunition. This will be great. I'm going to shoot this in my 223 Ackley, and I'll just continue using the brass, because lots of guys have really good luck with using the 5.56 brass, whether it's LC, Winchester, or whatever. And I've read a bunch of it online, right, because it's harder cases. And so a lot of guys run them for the 223 Ackley, and they work great. Well, I fire a couple of these cases, and I notice I'm not getting a crush fit. And I'm like, F it, it's fine. No big deal, right? The case will stretch. Well, I start getting case head separation. And so I get a couple where I, might shoot 10 shots of this ammunition, and I might get like 1 or 2 case head separations. And so me, right, being a reloader, I was like, oh, no big deal, dude. If I waste a couple pieces of brass, who cares? Well, right, case head separation is basically a catastrophic malfunction. And that is basically your chamber specs are either so large or the case dimensions are so small that the case is having to stretch so much in your chamber that it is breaking off. Basically, the normal separation point is the like the 200 thou mark right above the case head. And that's normally where case head separations happen. But I had a couple that were mid-body, I had a couple that were up near the shoulder, and rather than me being like, timeout, this is bad, I'm having a catastrophic malfunction, not good, I was at the range, and I had another 10 shots of this stuff. So I basically had one AIC mag. And I was like, man, I'll just shoot the rest of these, and I will not shoot any more of this ammunition. I think I had already shot about 20 rounds. And I was like, I will not shoot any more of this ammunition. I'll grab the fired pieces, and I will process them, and I will basically do another firing and see if I have issues. If I have issues, I'm just not going to mess with this brass anymore. Well, I get maybe 2 shots into that AIC mag, and bang. And right, I got a little smoke coming out of the out of the closed chamber, as right, either I popped a primer, I had a case head separation, something went wrong, and I open the bolt, pull the bolt back, and basically a case head falls out, and I had seized a case in the chamber. Not good. And basically that was because those cases weren't headspaced properly, and so right, it caused, in that one particularly, maybe it was a little extra smaller than the other cases I had shot, and it caused it to get above high pressures as it was forming to the chamber, and the case got stuck in the chamber. I've had this happen a couple times at 243 Ackley stuff, but I'm not running high pressure. Well, I'm running high pressures. I'm not running it out of headspace. So I mean, I've had brass with 10 firings on it, have case head separation, the case head falls off, and normally you can just knock the brass out of the chamber, no big deal. I've never actually had a stuck case. And so, to my dismay, I actually tried to get the case out, and it was like really, really stuck. And I tried to get the case out with like an Allen wrench or something. When I pulled the barrel off, couldn't get it out. Sent it to a gunsmith. I had scratched the living crap out of the chamber. He was actually able to get the case out. And then I had basically toasted that chamber. And so the barrel was brand new. It only had about 100, maybe 200 rounds on it. And so it got reamed out to a 22 Creedmoor. And that thing absolutely hammered as a 22 Creedmoor barrel. So that was my first one, so that was pretty disappointing. I ended up getting another barrel, and it just didn't shoot as consistent, which I wasn't super stoked about. It still wasn't bad. I could print, 10 shots at an inch at 100 yards for fireform loads. It was just my actual, loads that I wanted to be very accurate. I really was having a really hard time getting real consistent extreme spread and standard deviation. So I ended up selling that barrel off. The guy who got it was really happy with how it shot, and I ended up buying 2 new barrels. I bought one off someone who was getting rid of one, so I bought it secondhand. I'm shooting that barrel currently. It's a 26-inch 1-in-8 twist, and it's it's a Remington barrel. So basically, it's an inch, and it's basically MTU contour. So it's an inch basically all the way to the muzzle. And that thing's a 1-in-8 twist. It shoots lights out right now. I'm shooting that exact same fire form load that I explained to you guys. It's shooting great, super consistent, which I appreciate. So I'm basically going to put probably, I don't know, 1,500 rounds through this barrel as I'm slowly practicing. And then the hope is that I'll put on my 1-in-7 twist barrel, and I'm going to work up a load with 88 grain ELDMs and see how they do. And if I don't get the results I want, I'm going to take that barrel back off, and I'll throw on the 1-in-8 twist again, and I'll do fireform, or I'll do additional loads with the 80 grain ELDMs. I have a feeling, regardless which combination it is, it's going to work well. But the idea is I'll get 80s. I'll get the 80s around 3,000 feet a second. I'll get the 88s around 2,900. And now, granted, I've heard of guys running the 80s, again, up at speeds that I was, at like 3,100 feet a second. With my first barrel, I've heard of guys running the 88s at 3,000 feet a second. But for guys who are running these 223 AIs and they're shooting these heavy for caliber bullets at higher velocities, like for me, I'm running my cartridge overall length at like 2.55. Some guys are running them all the way out at 2.6. And basically, you can get the AIC mags that are for 223, or you can get the polymer AIC mags from MDT. And those work real well. I've used a bunch of those for 223 Ackley. And that's how I'm running this cartridge for like overall cartridge length for trying to get the most powder we can. A powder I'm actually going to try because I saw Primal Rights was talking about it. He shoots a 223 Ackley, which is pretty slick, shooting the 55 grain burgers. And he had made a post about it a while back about talking about how H4350 actually worked in that case. So I'm not sure it'll be I'm not sure if it'll be worth it to try it in a 223 Ackley, but I'm going to. I want to see what the results are with H4350. But it is a very cool case design. I mean, there are some people who are running the 223 Ackleys in 1-in-12 twists, because I do a bunch of my own research online. And there are some guys running the 53 grain VMAX, right, which has a much higher BC than any normal 55 grain in that range 22 caliber bullet. Some guys are running the 53 grain VMAX out of 26-inch barrels that are like 1-in-12 twist for the 223 AI, and they're running those things up at 3,700 feet a second. But it is out of a chamber that is not doesn't have a super long throat. So, and I mean, granted, I'm not a ballistician, I'm not a gunsmith, but apparently guys are saying that if you try to do those smaller bullets where you're going to be running them at like a cartridge overall length of 2.25 in a chamber that's throated, 250 thousandths longer than that, you're going to end up losing some of the gas that's going around the bullet as it's going into the freebore. So you're going to lose some velocity. So I'm sure that if you, going off of that logic, maybe you're not going to get the, like if I was to try the 53 grain VMAX in mine with the way they're set up, maybe I wouldn't get 36 or 3,700 feet a second, but I'm sure I could still push them at 35 at a minimum. Super, super cool caliber. And then another thing I'm going to be trying, that 1-in-7 twist barrel, is McGuire Ballistics has a 71 grain copper rose 22 caliber bullet with a G1 BC of 0.47. And some guys that have been testing them or were shooting them were posting that out of just like a normal 22-inch 1-in-7 twist 223, I'm pretty sure it was a Tikka, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Some of these guys were getting those things up at 3,200 feet a second. And so I'm actually really, really excited to see how I can push those, because those, right, copper ammunition normally does really well with penetration. Not all of them kill well, but copper penetrates like crazy. The copper rose bullets do amazing with how they perform on game, like their terminal ballistics. There's a massive transfer kinetic energy with that bullet, and it absolutely turns things inside out, which is awesome. I've experienced it firsthand with shooting coyotes with some of the 93 grain copper rose, and I've seen hundreds of pictures of other people from Sam directly of them having fantastic results with those. And Sam knows that I'm a coyote hunter, and so Sam's sent me all kinds of photos of coyotes that he has shot with that 71 grain copper rose, and hogs and everything else. It performs really good. And for me, I'm slowly getting my whole family into hunting. I'm trying to get my wife into hunting. I want to get my son into hunting. And picking a caliber that is very family friendly for like recoil, shootability, stuff like that. Basically, I'm deciding between a 16 or 18 inch 22 GT, which I'm probably going to go with, or even now potentially a short barrel, not a true SBR, but either like an 18 inch 223 Ackley, depending on how well my current one shoots those 71 grain copper rose. I mean, if you can get those 71 grain copper roses even out of an 18 inch barrel at 3,000 feet a second, that would still be amazing. It would have amazing terminal ballistics, and it's not going to have a lot of recoil. It'd potentially be like the perfect cartridge for a introductory rifle for a shooter. I think it'd be really cool, so that's what I'm looking at, and I hope that you guys picked up some knowledge today on the 223 Ackley. And if you guys have any more questions, please let me know at some point. I am going to do an actual YouTube video where I go over my rifle setup for the 223 Ackley. I'll talk about it. I can shoot some groups, shoot at distance. Very cool, capable cartridge that is very wallet friendly. And again, it's just one of those things for me. I was going to have a 223 training rifle, and I was like, man, why not just do the Ackley, and I can try to basically get a 223 plus P load on the back end. So it's a cool cartridge, man. I highly recommend checking it out, and tune in next Wednesday for another Wildcat Wednesday. Thanks, guys. Take care. Be safe.